Well, each week, a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week, sounding off on the potential impact of increased overseas economic development trips, a new distribution center, and hundreds of jobs coming to Westfield and Hoosier Breweries shine in Denver. I'm pleased to welcome this week to the Insiders Tilson President Brent Tilson, also Veteran Strategies Inc. President and CEO Robert Vane, and Krieg DeVault partner Deborah Daniels. Welcome one and all to the Insiders for
Thank you.
Another edition, kind of a global edition, I think, of the Insiders. Deborah, I think more examples of Indianapolis, and Indiana's growing global presence. We had Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger on the show at the top of the show this week, talking about trade trips just back from India, China, Japan, South Korea.
Right.
These are becoming more the norm now than the exception. And seem to be paying off with investment. Just your take on Indiana's status in this global economy now. Seems the profile and the recognition seems to be increasing.
Absolutely. I think the governor said there are over 1,000 companies in Indiana that are owned by foreign interests, and so they're providing a lot of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to us to be involved. Japan is the real leader, and we've been courting them since the early 80s. And
back then it was different. I mean,
oh, yes.
there was a lot of
poor John Mutz.
Yeah, right. The gubernatorial election, that was an issue. The Subaru of Isuzu. It was Subaru Isuzu at the time. Now Subaru of Indiana Automotive. But yeah, it was a huge political issue, and it was not popular to be going overseas to court jobs.
Well, it's easy from a political bomb throwing perspective to say, why aren't you paying attention to Elkhart instead of being in India? But anyone who takes a broader, longer strategic view knows that there are tons of Indiana cities who are thriving because of overseas investment. I was communications director at the Indiana Republican Party when Governor Daniels flew back from Japan to announce the Honda plant. What has that done for that section? So it's easy to be political about it, but real politicians, real leaders see beyond that and do it anyway. And Greg Ballard's another example with a lot of this investment from India.
Yeah, we had real international focus. And to go back to Bob Orr, because I remember he took a leadership role in placing, at the time, the Department of Commerce putting international offices, which was really innovative at the time. Yeah, right, exactly. And that, I think, continues to pay dividends today because of our reputation globally.
I think it does, and I think there's a lot more public acceptance of this now.
Yeah.
You know, back then it sounded pretty strange.
Yeah, right. Brent, your business, your leader in the state, but in Greenwood, in that part of the state, and it's become these international companies have become so important for communities all over the state.
Oh, absolutely. So take, for example, Cummins and their expansion, their new third headquarters, so to speak, in Greenwood coming up. But they also have, a plant overseas. And I know that the governor visited there and had a chance to visit with them. And so we see this ongoing economic development across the world, and we have to be engaged. It's kind of like we chuckle about the NBA and the fact that Pacers played in India.
Right.
And the audience, 1.3 billion people in India. So the NBA is figuring it out, and so do we as a state. We have to be engaged worldwide because there's more out there than just us here in the States.
Yeah. Also, another example of that growing global presence. Big news announced this week at the Indianapolis Zoo. The zoo will be home to the Global Center for Species Survival. This was an idea that outgoing CEO Michael Crowther had a few years ago. It was signed, a deal was signed this week with a major, really the most influential wildlife preservation group in the world to create this and put this in Indianapolis. There's going to be any number of things happening, including conferences and events, all tied to this global species survival.
And that, coupled with Michael's other great idea, the Indianapolis Prize, which is the preeminent wildlife preservation event in the world, really makes Indianapolis the center for wildlife preservation, species survival. This is going to be very important. I think it's going to help with other economic development, and it's going to help attract young, talented people here.
Yeah, yeah. Your take on that, Rob, because it is, and again, to combine that with the Indianapolis Prize, it's pretty big.
The last point Deborah made is right on the money. All it takes is 10 seconds on Facebook to realize young folks love their animals. It's bigger and better than ever. And if you don't attract young talent, you wither on the vine. I mean, every mayor has said that and tried to do that. And this is an important part. You want families to live here? They like the zoo.
Well, and it's not just business. So you now are venturing into the nature space and animals. And so we're not just Indianapolis being all about business across the world. It's like, no, how do we be engaged worldwide in things that are important in many facets?
Yeah. A couple of big economic development announcements related this week. In Westfield, a community that has really focused on attracting youth sports and has made that a big business focus. Gordon Food Service, the big organization that has something like 17 of these big distribution centers around the country, putting their first one here in Indianapolis, a major operation. Initially 200 jobs, looks to grow to 400 over the next 5 years. So a different kind of business for Westfield.
It is a different kind, but what's interesting is the technology that they're putting into this facility. So many of these plants today isn't just picking stuff off shelves. You have a lot of sophistication, a lot of robotics, and the things that they're going to be putting in this is going to be very exciting.
Venture capital has always been a challenge in Indiana. It seems to continue to get better. Amplify, the technology company, Santiago Jaramillo, $15 million Series B round of funding, which is big.
It's been great. It's been fun watching him. I've been working with Santiago a long time in different businesses, and this one hit, and it's going. He's doing a great job, and the money's coming around it, and that's what money does. They come around great ideas, and Amplify is doing it.
It is Indianapolis in particular, but Indiana in general, beginning to get that reputation out there that, hey, there are some pretty cool ideas happening here, pretty smart people, companies that can scale up, and so the investment dollars are beginning to flow in a little more.
Well, first off, it's the wisdom of a past governor to create the IEDC and emphasize this sort of effort to beyond just the United States, just the Midwest. That's paying dividends, continues. It won't ever stop as long as Indiana continues to modernize and be relevant. But there's a theme of everything that we've talked about on the Insiders, and I'll say it very quickly. Good news, good news, good news, good news. The good news is still coming.
Yeah, it is. And the academic, you had something you were...
Well, the other thing about this is that, these are companies that are using technology to solve big problems. So you've got, how do you attract, engage, and retain talent? Well, that's what they're working on. And the company in Fort Wayne that is focused on basically solving food problems through technology.
Yeah.
Well, if I may add, Gary, what's interesting is with the likes of Salesforce and the other tech companies who have located and continue to grow here, we're bringing the talent into the state that we need. So that talent then provides the opportunity for these tech companies to get the people they need. And the other advantage we have is we have an affordable, place to live. And so these people can come from the coast and do so much more here and put that capital to use and get a lot more from it.
Yeah,
and maybe one of the hardest questions to answer is, why not Indiana?
Exactly.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, absolutely. The academic pipeline we have here, both public and private institutions, a very big part of that. Butler University announced a major new strategic focus, also a big $200 million plus fundraising initiative. So Butler is really looking at the future with a very strategic eye.
And they're doing it for the right reasons. Universities are having to broaden their base. They're having to look at non-traditional students. We were talking before about how there's going to be a cliff of the traditional students about 2026, directly related apparently to the recession of 2008. And so one, you need to broaden out and reach these non-traditional students. Two, you need to find ways to connect students to the workforce much earlier in their college career.
Well, a great example is the digital marketing. Those students that go to digital marketing, by the time they get out of their freshman year, it's already changed 3 times. And so the universities have to evolve and come up with certificate programs and other things that are not just a 4-year bachelor degree. They have to find things that meet the workforce where they are and meet the needs of the companies.
Transitioning from students to beer, I guess that's a good transition. But some Hoosier breweries did very well at the huge beer awards competition out in Denver. And it's interesting, Sun King was the big winner, I think the biggest winner, 3 golds and a silver. But I look at, Sun King King and so many of these upland, there are a lot of these breweries that have popped up and have done very well, not only in creating great product, but a business model that works.
Unbelievably, this came to me because I don't drink alcohol and never have. But as long as the industry's growing and
Yes.
everyone's being responsible, then more power to them. May I do one quick shout out?
Sure.
A very good friend of many of us is ill, and we wish him the best. And that's P.E. McAllister, who's done so much for this city.
He certainly has.
We love you, P.E., and we hope you feel better soon.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
That's a great way to end this segment of the Insiders as well, Robert. So Robert Vane, Deborah Daniels, also Brent Tilson. Thanks one and all for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will be right back with more right after this. Stay with us.